Hello, I'm Roberta Winters, President of the League of Women Voters of Radnor Township. I'm sure many of you have heard about the notion of paying it forward. That's what the League has been doing this summer, thanks to the support of the Radnor Educational Foundation. The foundation helps coordinate internships for Radnor High School juniors and seniors. Today, I have with me two of the wonderful young people who have worked with the League members to learn more about how our government works. As you may know, membership in the League is open to everyone and is actually free to students like these, and even young people up through graduate school. For details, you can just go to our website, radnorleague.org. Our mission for nearly 100 years is to inform people about the political process and to promote informed civic participation. Thanks to the Radnor Educational Foundation, we are continuing to pay it forward and help make democracy work through the efforts of students like these. Today, I'd like you to meet Aanchalika Chauchan, who has been working on our voter registration initiative at the high school, and also Estelle Atkinson, who has been working on information about the school board. I'd like to begin with Aanchalika. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Aanchalika?
I'm currently a rising junior at Radnor. I'm on the swim team and the ultimate frisbee team. Some of my hobbies include cooking, gardening, and also camping.
Wow, you're busy. What about you, Estelle?
I am currently editor-in-chief of the school paper, The Radnorite, and an officer of the Radnor Model United Nations team. I'm particularly interested in local politics and like spending my time volunteering for local campaigns.
So both of you have been learning a lot. Aanchalika, I know your work has been specifically on registering to vote. What do you think people need to know who are listening today?
Something that's important to know about registration is that to be eligible to register to vote, you must be 18 by the time of the next election, and you must also be a resident of PA and your election district at least 30 days before the election. And lastly, you must also be a U.S. citizen for 1 month before the election. And something about Pennsylvania is that we have closed primaries, which means you must be registered as a Republican or a Democrat in order to vote in the primary. And if you would like to change your party, you must do so 30 days before the next election. And this usually takes 2 to 4 weeks to process, so it's important to be on time and do it quite in advance.
So, if I've changed my party registration or I've just registered to vote in Pennsylvania because I live someplace else, how do I know it's official?
You'll know it's official when you receive a postcard through the mail, or you can also go on votespa.com and also you will find out there that you are registered.
So that there's a website that people can do it online as well as on paper, am I correct?
Yes.
So that they can go to this VotesSpa or votespa.com and get everything they need to know about voting, am I correct? And also they could go to the local library to get the paper forms to fill out. But those have to be mailed in. And if they're registered, they're going to get a postcard in the mail, or they can check at that votespa.com website, correct?
Yeah.
Now, suppose they've done all these things, they've registered to vote, they've got all the information they need, and they go to the polling place and they want to vote for the first time. Do they need any information?
Yes, for first-time voters, you must bring some sort of identification. This can include identification from the government or from a Commonwealth agency. You can also bring a pen.id or a driver's license. Some non-photo IDs include basically bills that you have gotten, paychecks. These are just a few of the IDs that you can bring. There are a couple more you can bring.
So, this is interesting. Now, you said that we have to pay attention to deadlines. Are there some common deadlines people need to know about for the election?
For this November's election, we have a deadline of October 7th, which is what you must be registered by. Usually the deadline for an election is 1 month in advance for registration.
And I think there are also some other important deadlines people need to worry about. For example, if I was going out of town or I was in a college someplace but I wanted to vote in Pennsylvania, how do people do that?
You can apply for an absentee ballot if you know you won't be there, There are two important deadlines for absentee ballots. One is the day you must apply for one, and then the other is the day you must send it in by. Something to keep in mind is that there's paperwork involved when you send in an absentee ballot, so it's important to have the dates in mind and what date you're sending everything out by. It must be received by the County Election Bureau at a certain date, November 1st for this election, and it's also important to postmark it by the right date, and more details can be found at votespa.com.
So this is by U.S. mail, so you have to have stamps on these things, and so it's important that you have to go to the post office, you have to get these mailed, and it's also important that remember that she said received by, so it's not just the postmark that's important, it's actually in the Bureau of Elections the day the deadline is, because it's very tricky and sometimes people are upset when their vote is not counted. So, you've registered to vote. If you had gotten an absentee ballot, you've sent in your ballot. How do we find out who to vote for? Is there a way we can find out who the candidates are?
The League of Women Voters actually has a website they use called Vote 411. This provides voters with nonpartisan information, and this is actually supplied by actual voters. You can also find your polling place online there, and thousands of people across the country use this website in order to make informed decisions about policies and who they want to vote for.
So the League of Women Voters helps voters in a lot of ways, in addition to helping them understand the registration process and the absentee process, giving them information about the candidates that the candidates themselves put up online. So that's really important. So you found out some interesting stuff. Now, what about local elections and people going out for voting? I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, this is a municipal election. We hear a lot about the presidents, but this November is a municipal election. What interesting facts did you find out, Aanchalika?
So I found that 55% of eligible citizens went out and voted in the 2016 presidential election, but in New Jersey for a school board election, only 12% of eligible people actually went out and casted their vote for their representatiants.
Wow, that's an alarming fact, and I think people probably have reasons for not voting, right? Because you'd think if they could vote 55% and then only 15% or less vote in the school board elections, what reasons do they give for not voting?
A few of the people do believe that presidential elections have more impact on their lives. Although that is true, local elections also have as great of an impact on your life. They decide things like day-to-day things such as taxes, college tuitions, school board policies such as timings, and school board curriculums as well for their students.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the things the school boards do, because that leads us right into Estelle. Now, Estelle, there are 9 members on the Radnor School Board, and they will be elected to serve 4-year terms. That's a long time. That was like from the time you were a freshman till the time you graduate. That's 4 years. And this year we have 5 people up for the election, and that's going to be a majority of school board members when there are only 9. So they could do a lot of different things to the Radnor schools than have been done in the past. And they have authority, as you mentioned, I know you've learned this, but in Title 24 of the Pennsylvania statutes, the Public School Code of 1949, that was a while ago, and the Pennsylvania Constitution to establish, furnish, operate, and maintain the public schools. Now, I know you've come up with a few slides that you can run through for us. Can you tell us what exactly these school board members are supposed to do?
Yes, so the slides that we have today are some of the powers that the board is required to perform. So for instance, the board shall be responsible for establishing the schools that are required for every person in Radnor Township School District between the ages of 6 and 21. Now, the board is also responsible for maintaining all of these schools. Additionally, they adopt and enforce the rules and regulations that determine how school affairs are managed. Furthermore, the work of the board is applicable to the community at large rather than just the specific schools, seeing as the board has the power to levy and collect taxes. The board is also not just responsible for its own management of the schools, but also for the management of the board itself. As such, they adopt procedures that govern how the board will operate. Similarly, they also adopt policies that guide the superintendent in his or her operation of the schools. The board also acts as an agent of the constituents, similarly to other local offices, but specifically in the matter of public education, instead of other community affairs. They establish educational goals for district students and govern a program of education designed to meet these goals. All in all, the board acts as the agent responsible for establishing, maintaining, and evaluating the public education activities of Radnor Township School District.
They can make a big difference in your life, right, Estelle?
Yes, a very big difference.
This is really important work that they do. For example, they could increase your class size. They could cancel programs if they don't have enough enrollment and you've signed up for a course and it doesn't run. They can talk about building athletic fields at the high school, buying you new band uniforms, all different kinds of things. They can fire staff, and what your parents probably care about is raising taxes. And even people who don't have children in schools have to pay the taxes for you to go to school. So given all this authority that they have, what do you think, Estelle, voters should be looking for as they go to the polls to choose good school board candidates who have all of these powers?
So I had the amazing opportunity to interview former Superintendent Dr. John DeFlaminis, former Chair of the School Board Mr. Art Lewis, and also former Chair of the School Board Mrs. Kim Doherty. And one question that I asked in all three of these interviews was what each of these people feels makes for a good school board member. Dr. DeFlaminis explained that in the best districts, board operations are always bipartisan. He believes that partisanship can be useful if there's a real equity problem, if there's an issue of one group of people not having their voice heard. But apart from that, in all other cases, partisanship does not demonstrate good governance. Mr. Lewis said that a really important aspect of being a good school board member is being open-minded. A school board member going into their term should not have too much of their own agenda because, as Mr. Lewis explained, it is incredibly important to listen as opposed to trying to talk more. He also explained that it is invaluable for members to be aware of the history of the district because we can learn from our previous mistakes and make sure we don't make those again. Mrs. Doherty answered that there are a number of things that make a good school board member. Members should actually respect the roles that administrators and school employees in districts do, as well as having an intelligent understanding of finance to be able to spend effectively because finances are a large part of being a school board member.
Wow, you've certainly learned a lot. Now, suppose you wanted to see what a school board meeting or what these candidates or incumbents might do. Is there a way that we could find out a little bit more about the school board and how they operate?
There is. So during the school year, you can attend school board business meetings on the fourth Tuesday of the month, beginning at 7 p.m. in the Radnor Share Room of the Township Building on Ivan Avenue. If you aren't able to attend these meetings in person, you can watch them live on the Radnor Township Government Access Channel or on the Radnor Township School District Educational Channel at 10 a.m. on Mondays, 2 p.m. on Wednesdays, or 6 p.m. on Fridays. Additionally, some of the candidates who will be running for election this November 5th are incumbents currently. You can watch how they operate if you attend the school board meetings or watch them on television, and this will give you a more informed opinion of how they function as members of the school board when it comes to election day. Apart from being able to see people live working on the job, it is usually relatively difficult to judge who will be able to do a good job. But candidates who have the qualities that I just mentioned and the capabilities highlighted by Dr. DeFlaminis, Mr. Lewis, and Mrs. Doherty will likely be good school directors.
Well, you've certainly learned a lot. And I'm really glad we can watch how they operate, either in person at these meetings or online. Because it's always pretty hard to judge, just from information that you might read. Now, I think the voters will also be able to go to Vote 411, our website, to find out more nonpartisan information about each of the candidates, both the incumbents and those who are currently looking to assume those roles. The League of Women Voters, as you know, has been for decades providing forums for candidates to have their voices heard. And we will again hold candidate forums this year. So that will help voters perhaps get more involved, which Aanchalika would like them to see, and also help us understand better who our school board candidates are. Our first forum will be held October 14th, and that will be specifically for the 5 school board candidates that will be running for election on November 5th. And our second forum will be held on October 24th, and that will be for the candidates in wards 1, 3, 5, and 7 who will be running for our township commissioners. Now, Radnor commissioners, like Radnor school board members, have a lot to say with what's happening locally in terms of our taxes and the rules and regulations that impact our everyday life, like the construction we see going on throughout the township right now. Now, all of those forums are always held at the township building at 7 o'clock on Ivan Avenue, and are shown live and also recorded for viewing later on the Township channel, and also Radnor Studio 21, who also is kind enough to let people see what's been going on across the township. Now, do you have any closing comments for our viewers, Aanchalika?
Oh, yes. Although some elections may not seem that they impact you directly, it's really important to get out there and vote, because every vote does truly count, and it decides what's going to happen for your country and your future.
What about you, Estelle? What have you learned?
So I would like to highlight one of the statistics Aanchalika brought up earlier about the difference in turnout between national and local elections. I'm sure few people are surprised at this difference, but I think that this should change. Local elections are just as impactful on daily lives as Radnor constituents as national elections. Local offices dictate so much of how our community functions, and these races are also sometimes incredibly tight. Sometimes 3 votes can mean the difference between a win and a loss. In these races, like Aanchalika said, every vote really does count, and local politics is often overlooked, but it is a critical field of politics that I believe we, as a Radnor community, should engage more in.
Well, I hope you'll continue your passion for political action and involvement. And all of the audience is also invited to always submit questions for our forum. So if you have a question about a commissioner or a candidate for school board, you can come to the forums, ask questions right there, because there may be something that's really on your mind. I know the athletic complex at the high school is a big deal. I know there are things that are happening across the wards with stormwater management. So if you have questions you want candidates to answer, you can submit them at the forum, on cards. You can submit them in advance online at the Radnor website. So we hope everyone will consider having their questions answered and finding out more about all of our candidates who will be so impactful on our lives. Now, I'd like to thank both Aanchalika and Estelle for sharing with you what they've learned as interns with the League of Women Voters this summer. I would also again like to express my appreciation to the Radnor Educational Foundation for their coordination of the internship efforts, and of course, Radnor Studio 1 and their staff for their ongoing commitment to raising awareness of issues of public importance. The League of Women Voters urges each of you to stay informed about the voting process, the upcoming election, and the candidates. Every vote counts. Cast your vote on November 5th and encourage others to do the same. It's everyone's job to help make democracy work. Thank you.